The other day we made a great big nail header, so now it's time to make some great big nails and discuss why I want to make some great big nails. Welcome to Black Bear Forge, where I hope to provide education and inspiration for anybody interested in the ancient art and craft of blacksmithing. Now, the other day I said I had an inclination to make some big nails, but by the time we get to the end of the video I will explain what I think the big nails are good for. They're certainly too big for nailing up 2x4s or for cabinetry work, but I do have an idea in mind here, and I'll explain that when we get to the end of the video. We got our nail header all hardened and tempered and ready to go. It's got about a 1/2 inch hole in it for the nail to fit through. And I already have a piece of 3/4 inch square bar hot in the forge. So let's head over to the anvil and let's get to work making a big nail. I just have a little scrappy bit of 3/4 inch square bar I'm going to use for this. And I'm going to set about 1 inch through the guillotine tool. And I'm going to create a nice shoulder that'll be the bottom of the head in the finished nail. I want to go down to not quite 1/2 inch. So something like that, and then we're going to draw this out. So we just want to draw this out to a point now. Try not to mess up your shoulder. I don't know if you can see that in the camera or not, but as I worked that point, it was actually getting a little bit hotter. So as far as we'll want to do that, now we can come back and work up the shaft of the nail a little bit. Again, make sure you don't hit that shoulder you've created. Now if you don't have a guillotine tool, you can do all this right here at the edge of the anvil with very controlled hammer blows. Ultimately, the heading tool creates the final shoulder. But I think it's easier on these great big spikes to create some sort of a shoulder first. And check it every now and then until it fits in your header. Got a long ways to go. And if you need to draw that out more, you get in there with the peen of the hammer. Very effective. Made a lot of territory that heat. That still doesn't quite fit. You can also just put a really long taper in the nail until it shoulders up a little bit. And that's probably good enough. I think I can be able to drive that in when we do the head. So the next thing I'm going to do is cut off some material to make the head out of. I'm going to probably cut off about 3/4 inch so you get a nice big head. I'm going to actually use the cut-off dies in the Smithing Magician, but I've got it turned around so I'll leave a bevel on the head of the nail. Now, if I were a real nail maker, I probably would have been expected to have already made about a half dozen or a dozen of these in the same amount of time. So that's all we're going to do there. And that starts a nice pyramid head, but we'll concentrate the blows here right in the middle as well. Now a nail header or heading tool is really nothing more than a support while you form the head with your hammer. You're not actually making the head with the tool, it just is there to create that shoulder. And I'm spreading this quite a ways. I'm going to put the bevel all the way around it. That's spreading out kind of uneven, and I would like to even that out a little bit. So I'm going to take it out of the header, and we'll... Yep, I managed to get it stuck. That's no good. When that happens, I have to lock it in the vise and drive the header back off, and that's somewhat a function of working that too cold. If I'd left it real hot, it probably wouldn't have done that. That would be completely unacceptable if I was a professional nail maker. But we can straighten the nail back out. You're getting paid by the nail. You're losing money when that happens. I just want to clean up this square and make it more square-like again. And then the next heat we'll go back to the header. And also kind of hook it over the edge of the hardy hole there, or the far edge of the anvil, and work it back a little bit straighter. So this is a little bit more controlled than the first flattening was. And it comes out better because it's still nice and hot. Head's still a little crooked. I wonder if the hole in the nail header isn't quite square, which is entirely possible. But anyways, what we have there is a nice big nail, but for the size of the head, that's a relatively short shank on that. For the size of the head, that's a relatively short shank on that nail. So what's the point? This is something that I first saw probably 2 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, in an ABANA publication or on the line with regards to the ABANA conference. I've looked for my original inspiration and I haven't been able to find it again. But what the point was is that at the ABANA conference, they had a big log set up, a big stump, and everybody was invited. At least this is my understanding. I didn't attend the conference, so I'm going from what I've seen online or in magazines. But anybody that attended was invited to bring a nail and put it in this log. And I think they were referred to as journey nails. And this log then journeys from one conference to the next conference, and people add more nails to it. I guess until it gets so heavy with nails, there's more nails than wood, and then they probably get another log and put them side by side. But it's a chance to challenge yourself a little bit. Part of what I want to do here on YouTube is spark your imagination and give you things that you can explore your creativity with. And this is a good project. This is about as simple a nail as you can make. It's just a nail. That's really all it is. It's got a square head, a square shank. You drive it in the log, that's about it. And it's a nice nail. It's well proportioned. And for my shop, the one I showed you the other day is back in my little office area that hopefully I'll finish some year. And it's someplace I can hang my hat. So they're functional. If you've got heavy timbers, you can drive these into in your house, you can use them for various things. But again, this is to spark your imagination. So what do? Make things out of your nails. You don't have to start with a regular nail. You can make scrolls, you can make leaves, you can make dragon's heads or skulls or whatever it is you want. One of the ones I've seen in a picture online was a railroad spike, but attached to it were two blacksmiths with hammers driving the railroad spike into the log. Very creative piece. Lots of different ideas. The only thing it has to do is be able to go into a log. And some of them I'm sure have to have holes drilled because there's nothing really to hammer on because they're ornate on the outside. So let's take a look at something a little bit fancier that still fits the bill of an ornamental nail, just to stick in a log to show off. The other day when we were looking at making a V-swedge, I showed how I use it to shape a leaf. So I now have a 1/2-inch square bar with a leaf on the end that has no purpose in my future. I have no idea what I would do with this. It's just going to sit around the shop, maybe end up in a scrap bucket, or maybe I turn it into a key ring and take it to a craft show. I don't know. But let's turn it into a journey nail. I want to start just by bending a corner in this. This will give me some place that we can strike the nail and drive it into the log. Lost a lot of heat there. I'm going to see what happens if I use these aluminum vice jaws somebody sent me. This doesn't have to be a perfect 90-degree corner. It actually melted the aluminum a little bit. Started to solder it, but that's getting pretty close. So let's clean the corner up just a little bit. The closer to a perfect 90 you get here, the easier it'll be to drive this. But they say it's not a big deal. So there's a nice surface we can use to spike our nail into the beam, the log. Now we're going to coil the leaf around a little bit just for decorative purposes. It may need a little stronger work here where it's so much thicker. I think I'll put that in the vise and bend that. This should allow me to get a nicer bend right here at the beginning of this. Much happier with that. It just gives us a chance to kind of scroll this around and do whatever you want with it. It can be kind of organic. It is a leaf after all. I think that's really about all I'm going for. Yeah, maybe not. Let's see. No, I think I want to bring it all the way around. At this stage, you're just making art, So it's just whatever you really want to make that matters. I'm not suggesting that you do one with a leaf. I just happen to have the leaf. So that would go into the tree about like that, which I think is getting pretty close to what I want. Before I can do any more, I'm going to go ahead and draw out this end though. This is, after all, supposed to be a nail. And if you cut from all four sides, you end up with kind of a point on your nail. And try to keep the leaf out of the way there. And it's a little harder from that angle. Then we can just work this from two sides with 90-degree turns will be just fine. And you can certainly do this over the horn again. But not everybody has an anvil with a horn. So if you just get ambitious and get after it, you can make this work. Now this one is not going to get headed. So you don't actually have to have a nail header to make funky ornamental nails like this. Now instead of a nail header with a handle, you could just use a bolster plate with a square hole in it. Not as convenient in most cases. But to clean something like this up and just kind of get it all in line, it works pretty well. And like I say, this really isn't a head, and this step isn't completely necessary because it isn't technically a head. The last thing I want to do is I want to bend this little straight section there. I just don't quite like the way that looks. That's really all I think I want to do to that. He says as he starts messing with it a little bit more. Be careful you don't break any of it off. I think we can wire brush that now. And as it cools, I think I'll put a little bit of bronze brushing on there. Remember, for bronze brushing, you have to have a real bronze brush, not a bronze or brass plated brush. And I'm just doing the leaf mostly. Hopefully you can see that. Here are the two nails we made today. Just a nice square-headed nail. Real handy for hanging your coat on somewhere, although I wouldn't drive it in the drywall. And then a very decorative leaf nail that is really just decorative. It really serves no other purpose. Now earlier, I've done other square-headed nails, but I also did this one. And this little animal head here is one that I had just laying around the shop. It was something I was using as a practice piece, trying to learn how to make bear heads, so I decided I'd just go ahead and take that head and make a nail out of it. It's been laying around the shop for 10 or 15 years probably. Not the best face in the world, but perfectly suitable for this particular exercise. Now, I think I've heard of these referred to as journey nails, but I might have misinterpreted something. So if you have been to the ABANA conference and you've seen the nail tree and know more about it than I do, by all means, let me know down in the comments section. Anybody else that's curious, look down there. You'll probably find some more information on it because I'm sure somebody knows more about it. Now, I am not proposing that we all make nails and go to the ABANA conference. I would love to go to the ABANA conference. I usually don't have the time or the money to do it. But I think this is just a good way to use some scrap material to spark your imagination and challenge yourself a little bit. This is 15 or 20 cents worth of material at the most. And you can do something ornamental with it. You can practice various techniques with it. You can make a leaf. You can make little animal heads. And if you have a post or a beam or a stump or something else where you can display these, then these are wonderful things to just display in the shop or in your house. The ones that have substantial heads really do make nice little hat hooks or coat hooks if you've got some place you can drive them into the wall. I don't know that I would hang anything on this, but something lightweight you might. And if you left it sticking out of the wall far enough, you certainly could. But there's no limit to the imagination on these. This is sort of like the Blacksmith Challenge project, but with that project, it starts with a given piece of material, and you can make anything you want. With this project, you have to make a nail, and it can be any kind of nail you want, and there's no specific size, no specific starting material. It's use your imagination and see what you can come up with. And I think it's a great way for you to get into the shop and challenge yourself on some level. Now, in the long run, what would I like to see done with this idea? I think this would be a great trade idea, that people make nails and they trade them with each other. So I hope you enjoy this project. I hope you can give the video a thumbs up. Love it if you'd hit that subscribe button. Remember, if you would like to contribute to the channel financially, there is a link down in the description for PayPal and Patreon. There's no obligation there at all. The videos are free and will remain free. It's simply a donation to help fund the expense of making videos. In the meantime, get out to your shop, make some nails, but stay safe, wear your safety glasses, and we'll see you for the next one.